Same thing.
Brought to you by Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America and the Ad Council.
WOKD, Winter Garden, Orlando.
Welcome to Real Family Talk with your host, Jay Real, where we talk about real issues facing us today. Enjoy the show. Real Family Talk. Hello. Welcome to another week of Real Family Talk. It is Tuesday, 9 p.m. I am as excited as possible, as excited can be, if that's even possible. But this is your host, Jay Real. Welcome to another week. Before we get into anything, let me welcome my panel tonight. Mr. Micah King is in the building. How you doing, Micah?
All right.
All right. We have Miss Monica's here. How you doing, Miss Monica?
Good. How you doing, Jay Real?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Miss McCrae is here. How you doing, Miss McCrae?
What's up, family?
Oh, and got Jeremy back there on the boards. How you doing tonight, Jeremy?
They gonna learn today. What's going on, everybody?
Oh, that's awesome. So again, thank y'all for being here. Thank you guys for listening. This is Tuesday, last month in May. Now, at the beginning of the month, I said I wanted to take the last month in May and just open the lines up. We're going to be talking about Marissa Alexander this evening, but I also want to open the lines up just to give the audience, you guys, my family out there, an opportunity to call in and just let us know how you're doing. We're about 6 months into the show here. And I'd just love to hear from you, just to kind of get a report card, if you will. You usually get a report card after about 3 or 4 months. But we're going to wait till the middle of the half of the year, if you will. And, give us a shout out. Tell us you like what we're doing. Tell us that, we're wrong most of the time. That's fine. We don't have to agree. That's what adults don't always agree with each other, but that's okay. Tell us whatever you're feeling that you want to share with us tonight. Give us a call, 407-894-1680, 407-894-1680. Just give us a shout out. Let us know how we're doing. If we got improvements you think we need to make sure, we'd love to hear that too. Moving on, last night, of course, there was the playoffs last night. The Game 1 Eastern Conference Final. Was there anybody watching that?
Heat.
Oh, the Heat. We're on Heat now, right?
Let's go Heat.
It is Florida, right?
Yes, Florida team.
It's Florida.
Yes, sir,
so as long as we're rooting for a Florida team, now that our home team isn't there, that's all that matters.
Miami,
and they got them last night.
I know they were there in the first place.
They got them.
I'm sorry.
They got them last night, too. I mean, they had them tied up at the half.
Yeah, it was close.
But it seemed like in the end of that third quarter, going in that fourth quarter, they just opened it up on them, man.
A lot of new Heat fans, too. Now that Orlando's not in it.
I mean, it's a Florida team.
It's a lot of new Heat fans.
It's a Florida team. They say
Florida
they represent Florida. They represent in Florida.
I thought it was called bandwagon hoppers.
No,
I don't know.
no.
I know once the Steelers are out, you still with the Steelers, right, Brother Real?
I am still with the Steelers.
Oh, no matter what.
No matter what.
Even if the Dolphins go, you still with the Steelers, correct? Oh, okay. That's what I thought. A true fan did also, but hey.
Whatever. It's all right.
Oh,
It's good to support everybody.
I mean, yeah. Not in sports, though.
You do have to have your team. You do have to have your ride or die team. Now, speaking of basketball, of course, late last week they leaked a story talking about Shaq was going to potentially be a candidate for the GM in Orlando. Mm-hmm. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, well, I guess if we're doing this for a publicity stunt, but for real? Shaq, the GM? Shaq. Like, what does Shaq know about being a GM for real? I mean, at least let him be an assistant or something. But the GM?
Dr. Shaq. Yeah, Dr. Shaq.
He played a long time. You don't know what. They always have those off-season conferences or little seminars for the players to participate in different things. And I know they have one to players that's looking to go into that side of the business. So, you never know what he was doing.
No, I think they were just trying to get a name.
I think they were looking for publicity.
They were just trying to get a name, dude.
Yeah, you saw Shaq shut it down quick.
He shut it down very quick, which I'm glad he did because he knows he's not ready to be anybody's GM.
Now, I think he'd be a good coach for Dwight, because Dwight was getting coached by Patrick Ewing. He had some coaching also from Akeem Olajuwon, but I think Shaq would be a great center coach.
That just means he wasn't listening.
Who? Dwight?
Yeah.
I mean, his footwork got a lot better. His hook shot got a lot better. But, I mean, he not Andrew Bynum or nothing. You know, Bynum is the one. It's just sad right now. You getting coached from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and you came in the league at 17 probably, I think it was.
Yeah, it was 17.
And you still ain't doing nothing, dude.
You don't want to listen.
A fail right there. That's not one to listen. But Dwight, you know, I can't doubt Dwight. I like Dwight. I'm a Dwight fan.
They said that LeBron went to Olajuwon this summer working on his post moves, and you see a difference in that. So,
well, you know, LeBron is one of the best players in the NBA, according to Charles Barkley. The best player in the world right now, according to Charles Barkley.
I mean, if you want to look at it, break down line for line, game for game, he is.
No.
Who's better?
The boy is pretty good.
Who's a better all-around player?
Kobe.
All around?
Yes.
Come on, man, please.
Yes.
Can't say that.
Come on, man.
I tell you what, when like I tell anybody, when Kobe was LeBron age,
he didn't
have one ring. He didn't have two rings.
He wasn't
he
passing
had
the ball.
Trey rings when he was LeBron's age. So not passing the ball or not, that man
he had the most dominant person to ever play in the NBA.
Hey, it doesn't matter what you had, who you had.
Scoring most of the points.
So what? What you mean, LeBron? You supposed to be scoring most of the points.
No. It's a big difference, and you know that, Mike.
No, I beg to differ.
You just on the LeBron hate wagon.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, if you until you show me something, you got to show me something before I get on your wagon, dude. I can't.
He done showed a lot, but let's just be honest. He has not had the weapons around that Kobe had for that length of time.
Okay.
So what I'm saying, it takes time.
Who fault is that? Kobe fault?
No, I didn't say nobody's fault, but you still have to look at it like that. You can't just say, "Oh, well, he ain't won no ring." Well, he ain't played next to no Hall of Famers until last year.
Well, I mean, in last year, did he win a ring?
That's 1 year.
Oh, wow. We're going to see what he do this year. But
what
I
year did Kobe
guarantee
get that ring
I guarantee
you
he will not win it this year either.
Well,
the Spurs are not – he is not going to beat the Spurs. I'm so sorry.
So that's
he
2
will
years.
not beat the Thunder. I'm so sorry.
So since we talking about Kobe – oh, I'm sorry. I know we going off to the deep. But what year was LeBron in the league when they won their first ring?
Who?
I'm sorry, Kobe.
He was starting. He was coming in after Eddie George.
They didn't win the ring that year.
He didn't, because he was coming in after Eddie George, and then when they traded Eddie George, I think they traded Eddie to Miami, if I'm correct. After that, he won his ring.
So what year was it?
The year that Shaq left Orlando.
That was about 1994, 95, 96.
They didn't win. They didn't.
96.
No, I think
They
it was
didn't.
96,
They did not win the
96.
ring that year.
They won the ring the first year Shaq left Orlando.
No, they didn't.
But they didn't.
No.
I'm sorry about that.
You forgot. In the
from
90s,
Tennessee
it was
know about
the Bulls and it was Houston.
Yeah, that's
Bulls
true.
3, Houston 2, Bulls 3.
Well, whatever. Like I say, when Kobe was LeBron age, he didn't have one. He didn't have two.
What?
He had 3 rings at 27, brother. That's all I'm trying to say.
All right.
I'll give it to you. Rings do matter.
That's all that matters.
Rings do
Ask Charles
matter.
Barkley.
But when I think the point that Charles Barkley is talking about and what Jeremy's trying to make is, outside of accomplishments, just on pure basketball, Kobe, while is one of the best closers to ever play the game, but LeBron is, as an overall basketball player, he is definitely better than Kobe, because Kobe is great for Kobe, and that helps Kobe's team.
Right.
LeBron is great for his team, but he is also great. Right. And so that's the difference. Just from a pure basketball non-championship, comparison. Clearly the guys with championships always reign supreme, but when we're just talking about pure basketball talents, you have to give it to LeBron, because not only does he score, not only does he rebound, not only does he assist. He has more than one aspect of the game that he's great at. Whereas Kobe is a great scorer, but you're never going to look to Kobe to now elevate the game around him, and that's okay. And that's okay, but that's not who he is, and nobody's asking him to do that either. So that's not a knock on Kobe, but nobody's asking him to do that. They want Kobe to be Kobe. They want Kobe to close games. They want Kobe to take over. That's why Kobe's there. But LeBron just has more talents to his game. It's the same reason why you don't say Kobe's better than Magic. You know what I'm saying? Because yes, Kobe is probably a better closer than Magic, but as far as overall game, Magic is still better. And then Magic has the rings too, so you got to give it to Magic. So all things championship being equal.
So what are we giving LeBron if he has no rings? Then that's my thing.
Again, we're talking about players, not championships.
Oh, okay. I don't understand that language. And I understand rings. Like everybody else in the NBA, it's all about the jewelry.
So if you understand rings, why
got
you
his
talking
thumb
about
up.
Dwight Howard, dude?
Because I'm in Orlando. And I'm trying to stay on the air, brother. We love Dwight.
He's trying to personally convince Dwight to stay, he said.
Yes.
But that's all right. That's all right. We'll move on. As you can tell, NBA playoffs always gets heated, especially when you go to comparing Kobe and LeBron. Them LeBron haters, and yes, you are a hater, but that's okay. The LeBron haters are not going to let you say anything to elevate him beyond where he truly is, which is still trying to get on the come up, right?
That's all it is.
I got you, brother.
I'm a Spurs hater. I cannot stand the Spurs.
They have one of the best coaches of all time.
I can't stand them. I cannot stand to watch them. Tim Duncan has the same facial expression for everything, whether he's happy, sad, excited, angry. It's the same blank.
It's called
stare.
a poker face.
It's awful. I just want to shake them. They're boring to watch. I know they're deliberate what they do. They run the same plays. They're disciplined. They're great with that, but it's flash and they're just boring to watch.
And that's what makes them win.
That's what makes them win. They got
the big fundamentals.
They may be boring, but they got all them fundamentals.
All
down.
the fundamentals.
They got the fundamentals.
No, they
down.
will not lose.
They're not losing to the OKC. That's not happening.
I hope they do.
That's not happening.
They're gonna lose to the Heat.
OKC
No, they
is
definitely won't
flash.
lose to the Heat.
The Spurs are fundamentals, and fundamentals
They
are always Trump splash.
OKC still on the come up. They ain't got that yet.
I'm not saying OKC is gonna win. The Spurs are going to be in the finals, but if it's going to be the Heat are going to overcome.
I was listening to a stat that, what's my man name from ESPN? I think it's Chris Broussard. Is that his name?
Yeah.
From ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the radio today, and he was talking about. He says, one, in the history of the game, there's never been a team that has as many under 24-year-olds as OKC has starting that has ever won a championship. You know, veterans always trump the young guys, even when the young guys are more athletic. And then the second stat he talked about was their team. He talked about how San Antonio, when you compare all the other three teams in the finals right now, San Antonio is the only one with one lottery pick. The only one with one lottery pick.
Yeah.
Everybody else has at least 3. Miami has about 7. I mean, obviously they're not all in their prime, but they was at least lottery picks at some point.
Yeah.
You know, but they're the only team that only has one lottery pick, which is Tim Duncan. Everybody else was second round players or players that have been bouncing around the league for a long time. But you know, like he said, Pop got that plan.
He's the best coach,
and he put it together.
He was a better coach than Phil Jackson, in my opinion. Phil Jackson had a great strategy with the triangle, but take away Jordan, take away Kobe, I don't know what Phil would have been. Where you got Popovich, he got these players, he put them together, and he runs a system that cannot be denied.
It's a testament to the Coach Pop and the GM. They find players to fit their system instead of just going and grabbing good players. Right. Because everybody doesn't, just because you're great don't mean you go play good together.
I look at a guy like Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson seems to be a train wreck everywhere he goes. But he comes to San Antonio because he was with them the last time they won a championship.
Yeah, he won a ring with them.
He comes to San Antonio, man, and he has it together. You don't hear nothing about Steven Jackson that's negative when he's in San Antonio.
Right. Yeah, 'cause he understands the situation.
Yeah.
And then the other things, too, you know, I don't think Steven Jackson was never at a point in his career he was ready to be a leader. And that's the problem we had other teams. You know, he still played ball. He was still great on the court. He just couldn't lead the locker room and rally those young guys around him. Because, you know, he was in Golden State. They did some damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's basketball for you, right? So we'll see how it goes. Game 2 tonight, OKC and San Antonio, and then Game 2 tomorrow for the Heat and the Celtics. So we'll see how it works out over the course of these potential 7-game series. So we'll see how that goes. One more comment before we jump into Marissa Alexander. I'm sure some of you are following this. But tonight is another Republican primary, and it looks like Mitt Romney will finally collect all the necessary votes that he needed in order to officially become the nominee. So we want to send a shout out to Mitt Romney and his camp.
Hit the boo button.
It's about to become official.
That ain't boo.
The Republican candidate is about to get sealed here. So shout out to the Romney campaign.
All right.
So back to Marissa.
I didn't know they were still having primaries for Republicans.
Yeah, they still have primaries for Republicans. They still have primaries for the Democrats.
But why they take so long to get the silver medal? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Just pick somebody already. Just have them sit on that pole and wait for Obama to step up to the top.
Last year the Democratic primaries went even longer than this. So this is how it goes. This is the game. This is the game that they play. But officially tonight he should get all those votes. So shout out to the Romney campaign and all those Romney supporters out there. I know you're listening, Romney supporters, but you can't call in. I understand. This is a hostile show. I get it. 407-894-1680. 407-894-1680 is the number. Like I said, give us a call. Just tell us what you're thinking about what we're doing here. We'd love to hear from you. But we're going to go ahead and jump in our topic. So our topic tonight is Marissa Alexander. Marissa Alexander. Now, for those that aren't familiar with that name, Marissa Alexander is the young lady who early, about maybe a couple months ago now, was officially convicted of, and oh my gosh, I can't believe I have forgotten the actual charge. Was it aggravated assault? 3 counts of aggravated assault is what she got convicted of, and the situation involved her taking a gun and bringing it into her home and then shooting that gun. She says into the ceiling as a warning shot against her abusive ex-husband. Okay, so abusive ex-husband's in the house. She goes to the car. She brings the gun into the house, shoots it in the air to say, "Hey, it's not gonna be today." I guess that was her point. It ain't gonna happen today, bruh. So she gets convicted of 3 counts of aggravated assault, and as a result of the 10-20 life mandatory sentences that we have in the state of Florida, she is now facing 20 years in prison for simply firing a gun in her home, according to her, and to let her abusive ex-husband know that it's not happening today, bruh. And so here we are. She's 20 years. They've actually asked for a retrial at this point, and the judge refused to give a retrial. There are Corrine Brown. Corrine Brown is all over Florida supporting cases these days. And so
she's doing her job.
And she's, speaking up on behalf of Marissa Alexander. The NAACP actually had a rally today, or they had a planned rally, of course, with all the rain going on. They kind of mulled things down, and I guess they'll do it at some other time. But from what I understand, there was a crowd of about 50 people who did gather at a venue in support of Marissa Alexander, and at the very least, they're trying to get her sentence knocked down, because it seems pretty excessive to get 20 years when all she did was fire a warning shot in her home that did not injure anyone, to let her abusive ex-husband know it ain't going down like that today, bruh. Right. And it worked. After she fired the shot, he left the house and moved on about his day. So that's the topic tonight. Marissa Alexander, is that fair? Was it just? What do we think about mandatory sentencing? We'll kind of talk about all those things. 407-894-1680. 407-894-1680 is the number. Give us a call. Join us in this conversation. So let's go. What are we thinking? Let's start with the ladies. Ladies, what do you think about that, ladies?
And I think it's just ridiculous. I remember when we had your lawyer friend that came to represent and talk about the Trayvon Martin case. I had asked about the 10-20 life law, and whether that was still active. Apparently it is, but why does it not count for other cases? I know this is not just an African American law that they can settle whenever they feel like for particular cases. So what is going on in Florida? Like, I mean, I support the lady, you know, you had to do, she didn't shoot the man, she just shot in the air, whatever, but that really is not the sentence that she should have gotten, and she should have really been treated more fairly. They should have considered the abuse at least as a consideration for her behavior, and, you know, self-defense, but none of those things were considered. So I really don't understand why this has happened to her.
It's a really sad situation, and a little bit more background. The restraining order was placed against the husband anyway. Mm-hmm. Also, they offered a plea deal that would have given her 3 years, but she went and took a risk by going to trial, and this is where we are with trial. But a lot of the controversy is there's no wiggle room with that 10-20 life law. For cases specifically like this, when it becomes overkill in a sense like this. She didn't have a record. This was obviously self-defense, although there was a little bit of...
There's a question about whether or not it was self-defense.
Right. She left the house, went out to her car, well, in the garage, went to her car, got the gun because he wouldn't let her out of the house. She was trying to get out of the garage. The garage was locked. She could not get out. So on her way back into the house, I guess to leave, she said, let me get this gun, so just in case he tries to run up on me. Then she shoots a warning shot to back him away. The prosecutor was saying because kids were in the house, and what if the bullet ricocheted and hit somebody else? Well, so all these things came into play with being that the gun was shot, and that's how we got to the 20 years.
Well, we got into the 20 years simply because if you're convicted, well, then that's what you get.
Right.
If you discharge a firearm, then you get 20 years. I mean, that's just the law.
Right.
There's not even we don't question it. Mm-hmm. You know, if you get convicted of a particular crime, which in this case aggravated assault, and you shot a firearm, so you get, 20 years. Now, had she just pulled it, the crazy part of that is that she just flashed the gun in front of him. Well, then she'd be at 10.
Right.
But because she actually pulled the trigger, she's at 20.
And they tried to use the stand your ground law, but they said that failed because she went back into the house.
Exactly.
To get the keys to the car.
To get the key, went in the car, got the gun, instead of if the gun happened to be on the counter while he's charging at her, then okay.
Well, not even, and I think the bigger point with that, listening to or reading some of these articles, it sounds like the idea that you go back in the house. Well, not only did you go back in the house, which in and of itself is not a problem, but you go back in the house with the gun, and there lies your problem, because you didn't have to. I believe you didn't have to go back in the house with that gun, and then also you did not have to come back in the house and then discharge that firearm. It wasn't. It would seem the situation while I was listening to Angela Corey is the prosecutor in this case, or at least her office was prosecuting this case. And if that name rings a bell, that's because Angela Corey's office is also the office that is handling the George Zimmerman case involving Trayvon Martin as well, which is why we're even talking about this, because of course now that she's involved in this high-profile case, they're digging through her cases to find out, hey, who is this lady, and what does our office do? And so that's how even Marissa Alexander's in the national news in the first place. But one of the things that she pointed out in deciding how to prosecute Marissa Alexander is, one, she said she didn't look at the history. She didn't look at the history. She said what was important was not history, but what was important was this moment in time in August of, this happened about 2 years ago now, August 2010. And she said that, one, when you looked at the evidence, which makes me kind of question what I think about this case. When you look at the evidence says that she says she shot the gun through the ceiling, but the evidence shows that the gun actually went through the kitchen wall initially, ricocheted off of something, and then got stuck in the ceiling. Okay. Not only that, according to the evidence, she also shot the gun in his direction. so that the position of the bullet hole would be at approximately the level of an adult. Okay, so the bullet, while it may not have went by his head, it was certainly at his head level. Right. Was her point. And then not only that, according to at least the statements that were made, and I know that there's some conflicting evidence when you look at some of these statements, but according to the statements that this is from the prosecutor's standpoint, it would seem that the children were at least near him when the shot was fired. So the children were near. The shot was at his head, and yes, it did land in the ceiling according to the evidence, but there was actually a bullet hole in the wall of the kitchen, which would suggest, it had to go horizontal first, and then somehow it ended up vertical, which kind of contradicts her initial story that she shot it vertically. And from the prosecutor's standpoint, she says these are some of the things that led her to go for aggravated assault. She said initially they wanted attempted murder. Is what they were kind of thinking initially, because apparently the kids testified, or at least gave a statement that would suggest that they were actually scared for their life, or at least one of them did. Apparently one of them recanted, but the initial statements were that they were in fear of their life. And so from the prosecutor's standpoint, and the abusive ex-husband would say, obviously he was in fear of his life. And so, based on that evidence, that's why they went for the aggravated assault. And you're right, they did give her an opportunity to accept the plea deal. But they figured, one, they could either claim stand your ground, or two, that, she wouldn't get convicted due to all of the circumstances. But from the prosecutor's perspective, it was about that day. And on that day, this is where we are. So I found that to be very interesting because, if she says it was shot in the air, then there's no way there'd be a bullet wound in the wall. And so, and I understand that she's got to, put the best face for it and the best defense for it. But clearly there's an inconsistency there. And I'm not saying that merits her going to jail for 20 years. Right. But it certainly, it kind of gives you at least another understanding as to why we got to aggravated assault on 3 individuals, the ex-husband and the 2 kids. And unfortunately, the law is the law.
Yeah, but here's the thing: when you compare that to this Zimmerman case, stand your ground, really? So she went to the car and got her gun. He has his gun, gets out of his car, and follows somebody.
Fights a child, then kills a child.
Well, let's
kills.
Let's keep something in perspective, though, too. In this particular case, stand your ground actually was taken to a court of law and decided it wasn't stand your ground. In the George Zimmerman case, nothing's happened.
Right.
It's just people having a conversation about what could be a potential defense. We haven't heard the official word, so we don't necessarily know that his case is a great case for stand your ground either. We don't know anything yet, and we're not going to know for quite some time. So we're not. I don't see it as a fair comparison to say his case seems to be validated by someone, because it isn't. Nobody's validated it. It's just talking heads, right? We're talking heads. So people are just talking. But her case got, they took it to court. The judge listened to all the evidence involved, and he decided that it wasn't stand your ground. Because here's another thing. She, I guess she had a semi-automatic weapon is what she had, and she brought the weapon in the house cocked and loaded. So what was her initial intention? I don't know.
Protection.
The judge doesn't know. It's almost one of those things where you understand and you feel sympathy, but honestly, is it justified though?
But you feel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
407-894-1680. Remember that, 407-894-1680. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The sad thing is, this is the reason why so many women stay in abusive relationships. Because if you try to fight, or you try to get a restraining order, you try to get an injunction, the odds are up against you. And so this woman, regardless of, whether she went and got the gun, we are assuming it was to protect herself because he was abusive, or at least there was a history, right? But in the event, let's just say that there was something that did happen, and that's why she cocked the gun and she was ready for battle. she is in jail. She's going to go to jail for a very long time because she tried to protect herself. So what does that say to other women that are in abusive relationships? Well, if you try to, and that's what abusive men are going to use. Well, you know that if you try to fight me, I'll just say, you beat me up.
I'm the victim.
Yeah, I'm the victim. And then it continues that cycle of being in this relationship and being stuck because the justice that's supposed to be there to serve you is actually serving against you.
I mean, the justice is justice. I think, like the prosecutor said, you were already outside of the house. Why didn't you just leave type thing? Why go back inside the house to get some keys to a car when you're already outside the house? Just leave. So, everybody knows 10-20 life. So if you did something wrong, then you're wrong. We can't really compare it to Zimmerman case because, like we said, we don't really know what's going on with Zimmerman's case, but we know what happened with her case. And if she was already outside of the house, she might have been upset for that, losing your 15% of your actual brain or whatever. But, she was already outside the house. Why go back in the house just to go get some keys when you're already outside of the house type thing?
Well, when you're under emotional.
Exactly. You're under emotional. And that's the whole point of the story. If you're under emotional and now you got a cocked and loaded gun, your intent was not to shoot a warning shot is what the prosecution is saying. Your intent was go in there and say, you know what, I'm tired of this and I'm finna kill you. Basically. And that's how I would see it also.
And like I said, what does the evidence say? The evidence says the initial hole was in the horizontal kitchen wall. That's what the initial hole was. Now, the final resting place is the ceiling, but the initial hole was in the kitchen wall. So I grasp that it was a warning shot, but warning shots are not directed at head level.
Right.
If he was charging at her, which one of the articles says he was charged when she re-entered the home.
That's one of those conflicting
right.
evidence type
And
things.
so if you're looking at it that way, if he's charging at you, you already feel your life is threatened. This is the only way you feel like you can get out of the house. I'm not sure why the garage. You couldn't get out of the garage.
Like they say in the court of law, it's about what you can prove.
Yeah, that part was a little shaky.
And
why did you re-enter the house?
That's what I'm saying. Whatever happened outside in that
proven.
garage, she couldn't get out of the garage. Something was
She
locked.
was outside of she was outside and left the keys in the car and couldn't
garage.
start the car.
No. From what they say, her story says that the keys were in the kitchen along with her cell phone too, apparently. And she, was angry or whatever the case may be. And both individuals, I guess, had scheduled when she was going through the kitchen, he was going through the front door or something like that was the plan. But she got to the garage, and one, she found out she didn't have her keys. Two, apparently the garage door opener wasn't working, so she couldn't quite get the garage up or something to that nature. And so she decided to go back into the house, apparently to at least get like her keys or at least her cell phone so she could call for help. But like I said, in the process of going back into the house with the cell phone, the gun that she keeps in her glove compartment, because, in Florida, we have concealed weapons law. And so she has one of those licenses. And so she had a gun in her glove compartment. She grabbed the gun and then went back in the house for the keys. Now, it's conflicting evidence as to whether or not he was charging her or if indeed he certainly wasn't leaving through the front door. He certainly came back to argue, because I think even his statements, he talks about having another argument with her and even threatening her life. That's one of the things this guy, he's certainly an abuser, but he's also not afraid to tell you how he is an abuser. So he admitted to having a conversation with her and that he was, threatening to kill her while she was in the kitchen. Of course, this is probably before he saw the gun, but again, as far as whether or not he was charging her, that seems to be conflicting. If you believe the prosecutor's story, they don't necessarily give any credence to that particular defense. They only, quote unquote, they stick with the evidence that can actually be proven, and that cannot be proven. So we don't know. I know that's what she said, but she also said that she shot it into the ceiling, which is also, theoretically not true. Yeah. Or not theoretically. The evidence says it's not true. So I don't know. 407-894-1680. 407-894-1680.
It's just a sad situation, and bringing back the Zimmerman case, how it took so long for him to even be looked at as a criminal, to even get to this point where we are now. They called the SWAT on her. They called the SWAT team to the house to get her out for a warning shot.
But I think they said usually if you call SWAT, they're calling SWAT by because she probably maybe was refusing to come out of the house.
Yeah, she wasn't coming out of the house.
Well, there you go. That's why they call SWAT, though.
That's
what SWAT does. If you refuse to come out of the house, you got a gun. They call SWAT.
She was a black woman with a gun.
With a gun. And that's the point.
It was simply a black woman
Angry
with a gun.
black lady with a gun.
Black woman with a gun. Get the SWAT.
But then again,
down.
how long did we wait for Mr. Zimmerman to
Right.
even come to justice? I
Well,
think that's
this
where
happened
a
in
lot.
2010, and she just got convicted in 2012.
Well, we know the process is slow, but
Yes, exactly.
but not that slow. Not at the beginning when you're getting arrested and you have charges brought against you.
I believe what happened to her is yes, she was arrested, but she did get out on bail. And I believe even one of the reasons why her bail got rejected in the first place. This is another one. Another one of the things that the prosecution, anyway, is taking into account, because I believe Angela Corey was talking, and she was saying that once she initially got on bail, she did have this restraining order in place, but they have actually evidence of her going back to him. Mm-hmm. So you shoot at him, you get arrested, you get on bail, and then you go back to him. And then you know.
She gave him a black eye.
I mean.
Yeah.
What are we to do?
It's like, ma'am.
What are we to do?
Stay away from him.
What are we to? I mean,
exactly
what
help
is
herself?
That part,
what is it? Just I mean, what are we to do? What are we to do? And that's actually one of the reasons why she went back to jail, because she violated it by going back. You're not supposed to go back.
Yeah. Sister girl has some issues right
there. But that's common though.
Ticked off.
It's really common in domestic violence relationships. So they will go back, even if they have an active injunction or active restraining order. They will go back for whatever emotional, whatever reason. And so I feel like her defense really did her an injustice by not pushing the history, because that is the base of it. If they were just sitting on the couch relaxing and she went to go get a gun and tried to shoot at him, it'd be a totally different story. But there was conflict, and that was the whole reason why any of this had happened. And the fact that they only looked at just that day to see why that was fueled was ridiculous. There was continued behavior of a certain thing which led her to make that choice. Otherwise, maybe she would have just walked away. Maybe she would have, whatever situation. But she knew that her life was in danger. That's why she got the gun. And that's why she did what she did.
I mean, I know most garages that I've seen have a door. So if the garage is not going up, most of them I've seen have a door that you can go out of.
But
so I can't agree with that.
Why would I walk?
Mine doesn't either.
Forgot y'all live in the hood. Sorry about that.
And why would I walk when I know he's gonna have the keys and he could run me over?
That's just the law.
What?
That's the law. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to walk down the street if I know the keys are in the house. And if he really was as angry and threatening my life, he could very well follow me and do whatever he wanted to do, because I would be more helpless than he is.
And he's done things
so
to
I had
put
to go
her in
back
the
to get the keys. And I knew something was going to happen. So she, went and had her
But if you was having problems with getting the garage up from the first place, what are going to get the keys going to do? You going to drive through the garage now?
If I got to. If I had to.
You could have went out the garage door, but if it was no garage door, then I guess you would have to go back inside. But 8 times out of 10, unless you're in the hood, you have a door.
That. We do not mean to offend anybody who doesn't have a door in their garage.
I've never seen a garage. When we was on Hiawassee at certain people's house, it's a door in every garage. I've never seen that.
It's not a door in every garage.
Unless you stay in Timberleaf.
I don't got a door in my garage now.
Yeah.
Yes, you do have a door in your garage.
Okay, we're not going to talk about doors in the garages.
I'm just saying, I've never seen me personally, Mr. Mikey King.
You to my house so you can see.
I would like that. Are you going to cook also? Like they say Deltas don't cook, so I'd like to prove that wrong.
Deltas do cook.
When? I'm sorry.
Thanksgiving.
Wait a minute. What is happening? happening?
I don't know what's happening. We're getting off subject.
407-894-1680. 407-894-1680. Well, let me ask y'all this. I mean, what do y'all think about mandatory sentencing laws in general? The ones that we have here, here's what they say essentially. They say you get a minimum of 10 years when you use a firearm or possess a firearm or some other destructive device. You get a mandatory 20 years if you actually discharge the firearm, which is what she did in this particular case. You get a minimum of 25 years to life if someone gets killed or injured. So that's the 10-20 life rule. Okay, so what do y'all think about having mandatory sentences in general? This is, of course, in the case of firearms, but there's a lot of, even on a federal level, there's a lot of mandatory sentencing when it comes to drugs. That's one of the big issues when it comes to crack cocaine and cocaine. And the mandatory sentences for those vary. And so for a small amount of crack cocaine, you can get this huge sentence, whereas the same amount of cocaine, you can get a lesser charge.
Right.
And so what do you think about mandatory sentencing?
I think they can be ineffective in many ways. They can be taking away the power from the judge to use it on a unique case. It's meant to deter people from doing bad things, but in cases where it can be overuse of power, where a small innocent issue, depending on how you bring out this gun, or if it's an actual accident, if you shoot off a gun, then you're going to get 20 years just because of that, and especially with drugs. That's all our prisons are full right now.
Well, a lot of it, too, depends on, in terms of the 10-20 life as it relates to the guns, it depends on your charge. That's the key thing. What are you being charged with? And then did you get convicted of that particular charge? And so that will kind of determine that. So that's the interesting part there. That's one of the things the prosecutor talked about, is that she did look at other charges that may not carry, such a harsh penalty. But from her perspective, she's thinking, she fired a gun. It would seem in the direction of, potential this man and his children, so supposedly were next to him. So would we be having the same conversation if this gun potentially killed one of these individuals?
Right.
And so that was her issue. That was, if I'm considering that, then I'd rather go with this charge, because that could have happened if, because the shot was in the direction of a human being.
Yeah, I don't agree with the mandatory minimum sentencing. Like even in this case, Victor Chris, the Republican who actually crafted the 10-20 life bill, he said it was meant for the thug, robbing the store with a gun.
Mm-hmm. And the club shooting.
Right. It wasn't meant for certain situations like these, which is, even with him admitting this in states why it was a problem to begin with, because you can't just blanket every case and say, oh, this happened, they had a firearm 20. Or this happened, someone lost their life. Everything is different. Everything is unique. And I still believe that these mandatory minimums are, one, they do disproportionately affect minorities, and I think that's why they were enacted.
But I wonder, is it because, we say it disproportionately affects minorities, but is it because these laws are being created for minorities, or is it because minorities, on average, when they go into the court, they don't necessarily always have the defense
the right legal
to properly defend themselves, and so as a result, it disproportionately affects them. Not that this law in particular is when you go back and do some of the research, this you mentioned Victor Chris, who was the one of the ones who initially sponsored the bill, but this was one of Jeb Bush's initial platforms when he was running to become governor of the state. This was one of his big platforms, is we need to get tougher on crime. And so the 10-20 life was something that he was preaching as he was running. And the Victor Chris sponsored the bill. Once he won, the bill went through the legislature and got approved. And so here we are today. Now, if you look at some of the stats, I looked at some stats, and it shows at least in the next 5 to 7 year period after this law was enacted, you did actually see a decrease in gun violence. And so one could argue that maybe this isn't the way to go, but it was effective.
It definitely was effective.
One could also argue use it as a tool to get elected by scaring suburbia or reaching for suburbia. Say, hey, this is what we're going to do to get tough on crime. You know, and when we talk about these disproportionately affected minorities, you know, when you want to go back to the minimum drug sentence, how much time you're getting for crack cocaine as opposed to powder cocaine. You know, you got to have like I think you got to have almost like 100 times the amount of powder cocaine to compare to crack cocaine to get the same sentence. Now, at the time when these laws were enacted, where were you most likely to find it?
In the hood.
Exactly. So that's the stuff that people tend to forget. You know, it's 2012, so obviously, you know, drugs and crack and everything has spread out a lot more. But at that time, it was a lot more centralized.
I think the law is very effective. But like you say, sometimes, you know, it just goes with the wrong case. But the law is very effective for the club shootings, for the robbing of the banks. But I think the mandatory sentencing is for the lawyers that try to find a crack or an increase just to get their client out of a bind. And so that's why the mandatory sentence was put into place. And I do agree with it, but it's just some of those cases that you just wrong place, wrong time, wrong person, no door in your garage type thing, you know.
Oh my God.
But it's what's that saying that Phyllis, you said it, say one
Remember 407-894-1680, 407-894-1680.
I think you said Martin Luther King said it, injustice in one place is injustice everywhere. Yes, it's like, so I mean, when you look at it like that, it's like, okay, if the law affects a case and sends somebody up the road, when normally a judge would either give them time served or give them probation, but because there's this mandatory law, now they got to go to jail for 20 years. If that's one injustice, to me, that's a reason enough to get rid of the law. You know, so let's start reaching. Just let's start having these prosecutors, investigators, just work a little harder to prove these cases. You know, what's wrong with that?
Well, I think, and I'm just going to I'm advocating here. Mm-hmm. But you know, going back to Corey actually addressed a lot of these issues. I found her article to be kind of interesting. Also, her comments on a show I heard this morning as well. But she talked about that. You know, one of the things that she didn't want to happen was for her to get probation, because she had already documented prior to the case going to trial that, you know, on probation or even on bail, right? She had a restraining order against this guy, but on bail, she still went back to this guy's house. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, well, okay, so I plead her down. I put her on probation. What is she going to do? She's going to end up right back at this guy's house. She's like, so why am I going to put her on probation for her to end up right back at the house? Because clearly she's not even, you know, adhering to her own restraining order, if you will. Those are some of the things that she considered when coming up with the charges that she gave Miss Alexander here. Is that a caller? No? Okay. 407-894-1680, 407-894-1680 is the number.
I know, looking at that, I'm sure obviously now she's looking back thinking about that plea deal. Mm-hmm. But because I think it was 3 years, but time served.
3 years, but almost time served.
Yeah, so exactly. She would have been out, and now it's 20 years. She has 11-year-old twins and a baby. Like, when this incident happened, she had given birth 9 days before this incident. So that's a newborn baby. Well, this was 2010, but at that time, all this chaos was going on, and now 20 years. She's 31 years old.
I would say, when you look at it like that, I don't know, maybe they did, but her attorney should have been jumping up and down on the table saying, take this deal. Yeah. You already got a year and a half in. You go do maybe a year and a half. Maybe you might do a year and get off on 6 months parole.
Exactly.
And instead of risking.
Yeah, I would not have, I'm not a lawyer, but I just couldn't see myself advising a client to risk 20 years instead of a year and a half. Mm-hmm. Like I say, especially with the young children, but, you know. I guess everybody can be a quarterback Monday morning, right?
That's what they say, man. That's the best quarterback. The ones on Monday morning, man. That's the one that have all the info.
Yeah.
I saw that play. But you know, and I think it just goes back when you're talking about these mandatory sentencing, you know, like the stats say, they have worked, and it may not be the plan that you would have chose, if you will, but at least this plan works. And so until you have a better plan that's going to work better, you know, this is what we have to deal with. It kind of goes back to, and I don't want to get too political here, but just to use an analogy, you know.
Oh boy.
Please don't be about Obama.
Here we go.
Just use an analogy here, you know, certain plans that we'll just say certain parties have compared to other parties, right? And you know, right now there's one particular party that kind of has the power, and so yes, they have a plan, but that doesn't also mean that it's the best plan out there. But it is the plan that we're going with because that's who's got the plan right now. It's the same kind of situation, is all I'll say. I can't apparently.
But you support the
mention
plan.
Obama.
No, you support the plan that they have
Only
in place
because
at this
Obama
point.
said it. If Obama said 10-20 life was okay, y'all would be on that too.
Absolutely not.
Y'all be like, oh, well, I understand. I get where he's coming from on that one.
I can't talk about LeBron, but you can just dog Obama. I don't understand that.
I just don't advocate any mandatory sentencing. I mean, we pay judges for a reason. You know, most of them have plentiful experience in the legal system. So it's like they can determine the correct sentence. You don't need a mandatory minimum. I don't think a judge needs a law to tell them when a guy runs the store and rob him and beat up the cashier to give him 15 years. They were doing it before. The law just said they had to do it.
Oh, and there were always minimums, actually.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
the idea of having a minimum is not new. The
Right.
idea of having a minimum with this much
It's mandatory,
time
right?
is-
It's mandatory.
No, the minimums were there were minimums before.
Yeah, but
previous to this particular law, the minimum was about 3 years for this type of crime, which is what people were saying. They were saying that 3 years for discharging a firearm in some particular act just didn't seem enough. And so that's why they came up with 10-20 life, because now we're going to show you. It kind of goes back to, I look at crime in some of the Middle Eastern countries. And crime in some of these Middle Eastern countries in Asia and Middle East there, it's a very low compared to what we have here. And one of the reasons why is because of the consequences. You steal, they'll cut your hand off.
Right.
You steal a loaf of bread, they'll put you in jail for 5 years.
But people still do it.
But does that?
Because when you hungry,
do
you
people
go
still
try
do
to
it?
eat.
Do people still do it? Yes. But what's the percentage of people committing these crimes? That's the issue, because it's about lowering crime. And so if the punishment is harsh enough, it will. It's not going to convince everybody, because there's crazy people in the world. But it will when you have a crazy person on one side and the person who's sane on the left, the crazy person is going to do it every time, but the sane person is going to think about the consequence and go, nah, I'm good. You see, and that's what we're distinguishing here. We're not trying to eliminate crime. I don't think that's possible. But we're trying to create laws that will help reduce them. And I'm not trying to say I'm an advocate of all mandatory sentencing. I do think there should be some discretion given to judges, but what the point of these sentencing is simply to deter crime. And I think in this country, I do think in some instances, our deterrence to crime is not effective. I do think we could be doing more to help deter crime in terms of punishments, in terms of the type of punishments that we offer. I think there could be more done if you really want to deter people from doing them. When you see, because even with the 10-20 life, the way you get around 10-20 life is you simply plea. You get a plea bargain from the prosecutor if they offer you one, to avoid having to go into jail for 20 years because you shot a firearm. And so one of the reasons why, and I saw this in another article, that we do see some of these decreases is because of that. Is because individuals are saying to themselves, I can go to trial, get convicted, and face 20 years, or you say you'll give me 5 years if I just tell you this,
Exactly,
or you'll give me 5 years if I'll just plead.
And
Okay,
I think
I'll take the
that's
5 years.
So
that's why I think she needs a better lawyer.
So does that mean that the crime is not actually decreasing? It just is not, the status is not hitting a particular part of the sheet.
Good point. Because of the plea deals.
Exactly. Because that's how the stats go.
The
Convictions go over here, plea deals go over here. So when they pull up percentage, they say, "Oh, we convicted X amount of people," or percentage of people.
Well, in the stats that I saw, it just talked about the rates of the use of a gun in a crime going down. It wasn't talking about convictions or plea bargains. It wasn't comparing that. It was talking about the use of a gun in crimes going down.
Well,
that's what it discussed.
I don't know about y'all, but I see more gun crimes on the news than I seen 10 years ago.
Well, were we talking about Florida, or are we talking about
in Florida?
Well, I think as we grow,
and I hear more gunshots than I heard 10 years ago.
I think as we grow as a state, you're going to see crime.
That's
going
in the
to
hood.
see an increase in the crime.
You in the hood where they have no doors in the garage.
On the garage, I know. But I think as you grow as a state, you're going to see more crime. But does that mean that that crime is getting worse per se, or does that just mean that there's more people or
with guns?
More people with guns, sure.
I mean, but I think clearly one of the problems in the case is, and just like when you get a gun license, they teach you to shoot to kill. They don't teach you to shoot no warning shot, just as George Zimmerman knew. She should have known you shoot to kill. When you are on trial, one side of the story is better than having two sides. So that's one of my things. I think she should have actually shot to kill, just like they teach you when you get a gun license, and you need a better lawyer. Yes, that's what I was saying with George Zimmerman when we talked about it earlier. You shoot to kill. You don't shoot no warning shot. That's just not, why would you shoot a warning shot? If you're going to shoot the gun, you shoot to kill. Unless you're just going to, like you say, show it. But if you're attacking me, you're harming me, I'm going to at least shoot you. I'm not going to shoot a warning shot. I don't understand that. I think that she probably, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but it just doesn't add up. Something is missing about the case, in my opinion. But if you're going to shoot a gun, I'm pretty sure if you're getting robbed, you're going to shoot a warning shot, or you're going to shoot to kill.
I don't want to kill nobody. No. I don't want to kill.
You've never been in that situation.
I'm not trying to kill people.
I understand that, but
if it's a way for me to defend myself,
then you're gonna do what you got to do.
Right, but without hopefully not killing somebody.
You're gonna shoot a warning shot, and then you're gonna be in jail for 20 years.
To escape.
Right, give me a way to get away from this situation
she
that
escaped,
I'm in.
And now she's in jail for 20 years.
She didn't escape. That's
because
the problem.
Of injustice, yes. But I had a comment about creating these laws to decrease crime. I think it decreases to some degree, like you said in the statistics. But I think one of the major issues is they need to spend more time decreasing recidivism in the jail.
Yes.
And instead of creating more jails to put people in because of mandatory sentences, you need to find a program or some type of process to prevent people from coming back to jail on top of the people that you're already sentencing to jail, so that we don't continue with this giant problem of a whole lot of people in jail. And that they haven't really mastered that. They're just mastering how to put people away in jail so that we don't have to worry about the problem, or certain people don't have to worry about the problem anymore.
Are we? Well, I mean, don't we already have programs in existence in jail? To help them get GEDs, to help them have something to do to better themselves while they're in jail. Don't these programs already exist?
They're actually being cut a lot, because you got to remember now the prisons are getting privatized, and as a company, does it benefit you to fund a program that's not going to generate no income if you're working for profit, or is it better to get a third-party contract with an airline company or something and take reservations?
Right. And then once you've been convicted of a felony, whether it was a mandatory sentence or not, you still have lots of things that you cannot apply for to work, that a lot of situations where you don't have the ability to take care of yourself besides create your own business or do other things if you have the means to do that. And so it still puts them back in that cycle of going back eventually.
Well, this is definitely true. There aren't a lot of avenues once you have been convicted for a convicted felon to be able to find work. Well, this is the end of the show. We appreciate you for listening. Remember, you can find us on Facebook, Real Family Talk, Twitter, Real Family Talk, and also check out the website, realfamilytalk.weebly.com. You didn't call in tonight and tell us what you thought, but you can always email us, realfamilytalk@gmail.com. You guys hear a theme here, Real Family Talk. But thank you for listening. We will see you again next week, same time, 9 p.m. This is your host, Jay Real Family Talk.
Go.
WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.